Okay, this video is a guide to using if statements, and it's going to take you through setting up a function that displays either pass or fail in a cell automatically depending on the score that the student has got. Okay. In this example then, I'm going to show you two ways of doing it. So the first way is the kind of long-winded way, typing it out. The second way is using one of the menus in the spreadsheet software. So let's have a look at what an if statement looks like then. So if I double click in this cell, well, it's a form of function, so it begins with an equal sign first. Now the name of this function is an if. Okay, so it's an if statement, and the next thing, if I'm going to manually type it out, is to open my bracket. Okay, now the first part of an if statement is the logical test. So this is the test that you're going to do to determine which of these two values is going to be displayed. Okay, now the test I'm doing is basically to see whether or not each of these students has passed the test. And I'm going to start off with Eric Swanson. So I'm going to select his score, or the cell in which his score is placed. Sorry. Okay, so if I select that, B4, and to pass this test you needed to score more than 60 marks. So to show that in here, I'm going to use the greater than sign and type in 60. So that's my logical test. Has Eric Swanson, is B4, his score in B4, is it greater than 60 or not? The next step of this then is to move on to the value if true. So if it is greater than 60, what do you want the spreadsheet or that cell to display? To do that, and I just want to point out this little banner here, which kind of shows you the structure of an if statement, because it's quite useful and helpful, especially if you haven't used it for a while. To move from the logical test to the value if true, I just need to put a comma in. Okay, it's quite small, but if I put a comma in, can you see it's now highlighting the value if true? So it's basically saying, well, if that is true, what do you want this cell to say? Well, that's what I'm going to type in here. I want it to say pass, because that cell would be greater than 60. And then I need to look at the other side of the coin there. So if it's not greater than 60, it must be false. So I need to fill in this final value over here. Well, to get to there, can you see I just need to put in another comma, and the value if false lights up. And if I put that in, I want it to say fail. Close the speech marks and close the brackets as well to finish off that if statement. Okay, so if B4 is greater than 60, well, that's true and it's going to say pass. If B4 is not greater than 60, it's false and it's going to show fail. If I press enter on my keyboard, there you go, it's picked that up. So that's one way of writing an if statement, and I could just auto fill that down using the and replicate that function down across the cells, and you can see it's automatically showing whether the students have passed or failed or not. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. Very quickly going to show you another way of doing it which you might find easier. Okay, so I'm just going to start again. Now I've come along my tab menu at the top here, and I've got formulas as an option at the top. And under formulas I've got a logical set of functions that I can choose, of which an if statement is one. Okay, so if I select if and go into here, you can see it's a slightly different format now. So rather than having to type it all in manually, this wizard is going to help me fill in this if statement. So it's saying start with the logical test. Well, my logical test, if I click on this option here, involves this cell B4. So I'm going to put that in the same. Again, I'm just going to come back up here. So B4, is that greater than 60? So that's still the same test, and at the moment that's currently false. It's not greater than 60, is it? If it's true, well, what do I want it to say? I want it to say pass. Okay, but remember you still need your speech marks here, so pass if that's true, if it was greater than 60. And obviously if it's not greater than 60, it must be false, so fail, and close the speech marks. And if I press OK on that, okay, it's done some of the niggly stuff for me with the commas and the brackets, etc. Okay, so that's another way you can go about doing it if you find that easier to remember. And again, if I just fill that down to the bottom, and let's just do a quick test here. So put that back to 80. Okay, there you go. I have a spreadsheet that's automatically working out for me whether my students have passed or failed.